Hello, this is Tony Kelly, your host from Birmingham's Breakthrough TV, Our Health is Our Wealth show. And in the studio, well, virtually actually, I have my guest today, Carmen Gilfillan of Leicester. Now, before you even say anything, Carmen, you came highly recommended by Angela Clark of Teams. When I was scouting for people to appear on my show, she said, you have to get Carmen Gilfillan of Leicester. So it's our first time of meeting. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me.
And here we go. You're welcome. So, Carmen, for the benefit of the viewers and listeners, start by telling us, please, a bit about yourself. We're talking about your early upbringing and your childhood. Share some of that with the viewers, please.
Well, I was actually born in Yorkshire. So I was born in Huddersfield, and both my parents come from the Caribbean. So they came over here, as you know, a lot of Caribbean parents did in the 50s and 60s, and settled here. And both my parents are still alive. And I was born in Huddersfield, stayed there till I was about 3, and then moved down to Leicester. Unfortunately, my parents parted when I was about 3, so I moved down to Leicester, spent some time with my aunt, and then my mother came down and joined me, and she raised me on her own for quite a few years, probably for about 6 years, and then she met my stepfather, who, they've been together ever since. They've been together for well over 40 years. So, so it was an interesting childhood.
Right. And are there any half sisters or half brothers, as people like to, from the relationship your mother had with your stepfather?
Yes, I've got 3 half sisters and 3 brothers on my stepfather's side. So there's quite a few of us, actually.
I see. And take us through a bit then about schooling, education.
Yeah, I mean, I went to school in Leicester, and, went to junior school, got on really well in junior school, made some great friends in junior school, and then we moved. So when my mum got married, they got married in 1976, we moved areas. So I moved into a predominantly white area, and then went to a predominantly white school. I mean, I was probably the only Black child in my year, as I remember it. I was definitely the only Black child in my class at that time. I was about 9 at the time. And as a result of that, as you can imagine, I went through quite a lot of racism in my early years in school, especially in junior school. When I got into secondary school, it wasn't too bad, but there was quite a bit in my junior school. So it took me a long time to settle in. And then in secondary school, again, the only Black child in my class. So it was a difficult time for me. My school days weren't my best days, but it set me up for what I did later in life. So I'm actually quite grateful for my school experiences, as well as the challenging times, because it meant that I had to get through that. I had to survive and actually come through that. And I believe that experience benefited me in quite a few ways. It made me stronger in quite a few ways, and it made me more resilient and able to deal with difficult situations later on in life.
Well done. Yeah. That's triumph over adversity, and you toughened up as a result. That's good to hear. So moving on then from your school experiences, which you've shared with the listeners and viewers, What happened after high school? Did you go on to do any further studies at a tertiary level, college or university?
Yeah. I mean, I found that I really enjoyed languages at school. So did French at school, really liked it. Did German at school, really liked it. And so I decided to go on and do A levels in those two subjects. So I did French, I did German, and I had to do a third subject as well. So I chose politics and did those three subjects at A level. And then after that, went to university and as I say, really liked the languages because at the time I really wanted to travel. I really wanted to see the world, or at least some of the world. And so I majored in French at university and did German as what we call a subsidiary subject. So that was like a side subject. And as a result of doing French, or as a result of majoring in French, I actually went and lived in France for a year to improve my French. And that was a nice experience. I actually wanted to go to the Caribbean. I wanted to go to the French Caribbean. I wanted to go to either Martinique or Guadeloupe for my year abroad. And they basically said, no, it has to be France. So I ended up in southern France, which is not a bad part of the world. There's some very, very picturesque places in southern France. And the accent is actually quite strong down there. So I actually came back to the UK after the year down there with a southern French accent, believe it or not.
Ah, well done. So a linguist in the truest sense of the word. Right.
Yeah.
Let's move on then to talk about. You describe yourself in the bio that you sent to me as a life coach. Now I see that word, two words banned about quite a lot. For you, what does being a life coach involve?
Well, basically, when you're life coaching someone, what you're doing is you're helping them to decide what it is that they want to do with their lives. So it's about looking at, where do I want my life to go in the future? What do I want to be doing, whatever it is, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And when you start looking forwards at where you want to be compared to where you are now, you've got that gap that opens up in your mind. So this is where I am, and this is where I want to be. So you know that you've got to take some steps to get there. And when you think about taking those steps, and when you think about where you want to be, your stuff starts coming up. So I'm not good enough, or I'm scared, or I've not done it before, or all of this stuff starts to come up. So we call those blockages. And those blockages could, if you don't keep them in check, they could kind of like kibosh you. They could actually stop you from moving forward. So when we coach someone, we actually coach them on those blocks. So we identify what they are, and then we use different tools, different techniques, different strategies, different approaches to start to, break those blocks down. And it could be mental blocks, it could be emotional blocks, could be physical blocks. You might not be physically able to do what it is that you want to do. So we look at those blocks individually. And when you start doing that, you yourself start to get insights and ideas and creative ways that you can start to break those blocks down. So it's very much a two-way process. And the idea is, if you get rid of all of the blocks, eventually you get to where you're going. So that is what life coaching is about. It's about looking at where you are now, looking at where you want to be, and then working on getting rid of those blocks, eliminating those blocks until...
For argument's sake, say, listening to this program are some young people who are thinking of a career and so on. How would they get into? You've explained what life coaching is quite clearly. How would they, if they were interested in getting into this line of a career profession, exactly how would they go about it? Give them some tips or advice. I'm talking for young people in particular.
for young people, the best way of starting out is to hire a coach. That would be the best way of starting out, because you would get an understanding of what coaching is. And especially if you're a young person, it may be that somebody may help you to fund that, or you may get funding for that. Yeah. Or there may be opportunities for you to be mentored, or there may be opportunities for you to be coached if you're a young person. Yeah. That will give you an idea as to what coaching is. And then if it's something that you're interested in, there are colleges out there, there's private organizations out there where you can actually train to be a coach. I went to a college called Newcastle College to train as a coach. I did coaching training for about a year altogether, and then started on my coaching journey. So there are establishments in the UK, private establishments, colleges in the UK that you can go to learn how to be a coach. There are international organizations that teach you how to be a coach, and you can access those because you can have virtual sessions with them.
Now, this question is about me saying I love the approach you use to deal with health issues by using therapy,
Yeah.
which doesn't include pills and medication, that sort of thing. Tell us a bit more about that approach, as tablets, in my mind, tend to mask the problem. You come with a different perspective.
Yeah. My ethos is really to look at natural ways of health and well-being, natural strategies around health and well-being. Yeah. And so that includes looking at one of the things it includes is looking at something called energy healing. And my approach is actually working with your body at the cellular level. So I work at quite a deep level to eliminate, get rid of, whatever you want to call it, emotional issues that stop you from moving forwards. Yeah. So it could be stress, it could be anxiety, it could be that you feel quite melancholic, it could be that you feel quite down a lot of the times. And when we work with the body at the cellular level, we look into what that is, and we actually get to the root cause of it. So there's two areas of energy healing that I deal with. One is called Reiki, and one is called emotional freedom technique. So emotional freedom technique, first of all, that is a session, or that is a series of sessions that works on, as I say, on the body at the cellular level by actually tapping on specific parts of the body. And those parts are called acupressure points. Those points are called acupressure points. And it's the same points that an acupuncturist will use in acupuncture, but we tap them. And what that does is it gets the energy moving in the body in an unimpeded way. And it's that unimpeded flow of energy that starts to shift you on an emotional level and also on a mental level as well. And then the other one is Reiki. And Reiki is, again, a form of energy healing. So it's working with the body's natural energy system to clear blockages in 7 main centers in the body, going from the top of the body to the, sort of like the middle of the body. And everything that happens to us, whether it's positive or negative, gets absorbed into our natural energy system, and it stays there. It settles in those energy centers. So with Reiki, we clear any negative energies from those centers, and as a result of that, you feel calmer, you feel more relaxed, you feel more grounded, you feel more at peace. So those two are a very big part of my practice, and you can shift a lot of stuff just through energy healing. But there's other approaches as well that I use. Very, very big on diet, because diet is really important in terms of your gut health, and some people know, some people don't, that your gut health is directly linked to your mental health as well. So if there are mental issues that you're experiencing, or emotional issues that you're experiencing, it could be that you need to look at what you're eating, because your diet might need to be tweaked. And then obviously the nutrition side of it, making sure that you've got all the nutrients that your body needs. Drinking water. Water is a massive healer for the body. So they're just some examples of ways that we can start to look at health that don't include just popping a pill every time you've got a headache. If you've got a headache, for example, I'm just using that as an example, you might just need to drink some water. You might just be dehydrated, yeah, and that headache may go, yeah. So, diet, water, exercise. Yeah, so we're kind of coming into the realms of Sweden, which I'll talk about.
Yes, about in a bit. Yes, I'm going to leave Sweden for a bit because that's a very fascinating subject.
Exactly.
But you do involve yourself in a lot of training for new businesses, successful workshops around personal empowerment and achievement. That's another string to your bow. Would you like to elaborate a bit on that for us?
Yeah, it's again looking at, and again, it all starts with our health and well-being. It's making sure that mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, we are at a level where we feel we can then achieve what it is that we want to achieve, because that's the next level. And that all came about because as I say, I started out my practice in 2006. And it was just life coaching I was focusing on. And I realized that people were coming to me for life coaching, and we would set these goals. They would go away and then come back, and they won't have done anything. And I realized that there was something deeper going on. There was something that, we weren't kind of like addressing. And that's where the energy healing came in. So that's where the Reiki came in and the EFT came in. So now I blend energy healing into the workshops that I run. So I've got workshops around self-esteem. I've got workshops around confidence building. I've got workshops around stress management. But I've also got workshops around productivity. So how to manage your workload, how to manage your time, how to break down your goals into steps that are easier for you to take, and exactly how you can do that in order to achieve your goals and take your life to where you want your life to go. So it's very much about getting from A to B, but in a constructive way. And then again, using energy as a foundation for that. And so I've had clients go onto my workshops, and they have found that it's easier for them to achieve their goals. It's easier for them to get from A to B. Their workload, they manage their workload more effectively, they manage their time more effectively, and they manage their relationship with themselves more effectively, as well as their relationship with other people. So having that backdrop of using energy as a basis for the workshops, that's the differentiator in terms of what I do. And it just makes what you do in your life that much more powerful.
Okay. Touch briefly for me, Carmen, on the issue of, because it was loud, I came across in the CV, martial arts and yoga. Where do those fit into that whole business of relieving stress? Martial arts and yoga.
Yeah, I did yoga for about 3 years. I did karate for about 10 years. Karate was a big part of my life for a long time. And I've actually started it again recently because it never really left me. And what I like about karate is that obviously you get super fit as a result of it. But there's also this other side to karate and martial arts more broadly. it is about discipline. It is about respect, but there's also the etiquette side of it, which links in with respect. So even though you have someone that you may be fighting, you have an opponent, there is a respect for that other person. So you bow before you fight with the opponent. And when you finished your fight, you bow again. You know, you touch hands or you shake hands. Yeah, you bow before you leave the hall that you're training in. You bow when you enter the hall that you're training in. So it's the etiquette side of it that really, really interested me as well. And there's a meditative element in karate that really, really resonated with me as well. And again, that links into mental health as well. With yoga, I found, as I say, I practiced yoga for around 3 years. And in that time, I only practiced once a week, but in that time, I found that there were kind of like 2 layers to my life. Somebody actually asked me this question, you know, how does yoga benefit you? And I said that you have the busyness of your day-to-day life, but underneath that, you've got this kind of quietness and this peace going on. So that underpins the busyness of your life. And that quietness over time starts to seep into other areas of your life. And that's what I found. They were the main benefits that I found with karate and with yoga. As I say, they have been absolutely brilliant for not only my physical health, but also my mental health and my emotional health over the years.
Now, Carmen, you have about over 20 years experience of working in both strategic and operational roles within the private, public and voluntary sectors. You can tell us a bit about that, but more importantly, as a life coach, are you self-employed and do you have to compete for contracts?
Yes, I mean to start off with, I mean I've done lots and lots of different things in my life. In terms of the private sector, I worked in publishing for about the first 6 years of my working life here and in Germany. Actually, I moved to Germany in 1992 and stayed there for 4 years, and I was in publishing in that time, and I was in publishing before I left the UK. And then when I came back into the statutory sector. So I worked under the umbrella of the city council. I was working for a work experience agency, finding work experience placements for young people. And then that then led me into the voluntary sector, where I was working for what is now known as the Race Equality Centre in Leicester. So I worked on a mentoring programme for young people. And I also worked on a racial harassment project. And then after that, I worked within one of the voluntary actions in the Midlands. I worked in Loughborough for Voluntary Action Charnwood. And I was working as a project coordinator. I started off as an assistant to the CEO and then moved on to be a project coordinator on a project that helped to find activities in the community for older people. Yeah. So I've had experience in all of those 3 sectors. And then during that time, I started my practice, as I say, in 2006 on a self-employed basis. So part of what I'm doing now is contracting for different businesses. So within the private sector, mainly within the private sector. But I also contract for the Leicester City Council. So I've recently run a workshop for one of the Leicester City Council unions, and I'm due to do another one probably in a couple of months' time. So as a self-employed person, yes, I do contract for work. But I was also for 8 years a co-director for an organisation called Temple, which was a coaching and training organisation. And we won a contract with the Leicester City Council and also a contract with a company called Futures in Nottingham. And again, that was to help people who have been long-term unemployed to get back into the workplace. So we specialised in running workshops that helped them overcome mental and emotional blocks, again, self-esteem blocks, self-confidence blocks. So we worked with those areas. And again, we brought in energy healing as a tool or a mechanism to help people to break down those blockages.
Thank you. Carmen, what I like about your whole career is it's so people focused, so people oriented. It's about helping, enabling, and empowering people to make behavioral and lifestyle changes. And I find that fascinating. But then we're now in the middle of a pandemic, lockdown, call it what you may, because of COVID-19. How has that impacted and affected your work in trying to do all the things that you really would like to do? Have you been able to overcome sort of being with people and helping people, or are you having to do it virtually, like how you're talking to me virtually now?
Yeah, definitely. I've had to do it virtually. And so it just goes to show that we can still carry on doing what it is that we're doing. We just have to find creative ways of doing that. So, as I say, I've run workshops, recent workshops, and I'm actually scheduled to run at least one other workshop for the City Council, hopefully in the next couple of months. And so what I was doing offline, face-to-face, I'm now doing online. And so it feels very different because I'm very much someone who likes to feel people's energy, and I like to do that face-to-face. But if we're not able to do that because of what is going on at the moment, we have to do it virtually. Yeah. So you can still get a sense of what is going on for someone, even if you're not in the same room as them. And it then gives you an extra string to your bow, because I only used to do face-to-face sessions, and now I only do Zoom sessions. So I know now that there are certain aspects of my business that work really well remotely. And in point of fact, in terms of Sweden, which is my cornerstone, the cornerstone of my business, really, it's the coaching program, the 12-week coaching program that I run around health and well-being. That was actually set up to be done remotely. Yeah. So that hasn't really been impacted because we have always done Sweden sessions.
Okay.
Remotely.
Well, you've led right into my next question. You're involved in a flagship service called Sweden, Sweden, which I'm sure is not the name of the Scandinavian country. Please explain to the listeners and viewers, what is Sweden? Over to you, please, Carmen.
Well, as I say, Sweden has become over the years the cornerstone of my business. And Sweden is an acronym, as you've probably guessed. So the S stands for sleep, the W stands for water, the E stands for energy healing, which we've talked about at length. The D stands for diet, which I've mentioned. The other E stands for exercise or movement more generally. And the N stands for nutrition. So it's looking at creating foundational health, a foundational level of health and well-being by focusing on just those 6 areas. There are other areas that we can focus on in terms of health, as we know, but just those 6 core areas. And what I realized was on my journey, on my health and well-being journey, I was coming across the same themes over and over again. So you need to get more sleep, you need to drink more water, you need to change your diet, you need to move more. Yeah. So what I incorporated into that was energy healing, which I wasn't really hearing much about in the mainstream. And so that's what creates this Sweden package. So Sweden started off as a workshop, as a 2-hour workshop, just focusing on those 6 areas. And that's now expanded into like a half day or full day workshop. Yeah. It then expanded from there into a 3 to 6 week course where we go into more depth in each of those areas. And then it expanded again into a 12-week coaching program where you actually focus on each of those 6 areas, and you've got 2 weeks to make changes in each of those 6 areas. So it's a coaching program. You get coached to incorporate those new habits into your lifestyle. And as I say, you've got 2 weeks to do that in each of those 6 areas. And I've had people come through the program where their lives have changed dramatically as a result of just focusing on those 6 areas for that 3-month period.
Well, later on, you're going to, towards the end, give us the information in terms of how to get in touch with you for Sweden. Where is it on the website? So we'll come back to that in a bit. But I'm going to look more now, because you've given us so much advice within the time we've spoken so far. Mm-hmm. I want you to home in on, we're in another lockdown, and there are people, the vulnerable, the aged, single parents or parents, husband and wife with children, struggling to cope with teaching, home tutoring, and as I said, the aged and the vulnerable and so on. What advice, practical tips, advice would you want to give to people in these what are sometimes seem very stressful, depressed mental health situations that they're having to cope with in their homes, not being able to do things that they would normally? What would you say to them?
Definitely. I mean, one of the things that I would say is that we in a way we have to watch the news because we have to keep abreast of what is going on. But one of the key things that I would say is that you don't have to be inundated by what is being said at the moment on the news. Yeah. By all means, switch the news on, get the latest, get the headlines, understand what's gone on that day, and then switch the TV off. Get on with your life. Do something different. If you're finding that you're very, very fearful by what is going on, there are things that you can do to calm what we call the amygdala down in the brain, which is the part of the brain which is responsible for fight or flight. Yeah. One of them is just deep breathing. Yeah. Just lengthening your breathing, especially your out breath. Lengthen your out breath, which then automatically lengthens your in-breath. Yeah. So take some time out, turn everything off, including your phone, sit down and just close your eyes and just focus on your breathing, nothing else, for just 5 minutes. And what that does is it takes you out of this fight-flight state and into the opposite state, which is what we call rest and digest. Okay, takes you into a calmer state, and from that calm state, you will then be able to think more clearly about what it is that you need to do. Yeah. So, do you need to, look for other ways of generating income? Do you need to look for a new job? Do you need to get help from somebody? Do you need to speak to somebody? Do you need to open up and speak to a family member? Do you need to open up and speak to a friend? Do you need to get more sleep? Do you need, all the things that we talked about in terms of Sweden? Do you need to look at all of that? Yeah. But you'll be doing it from a calmer, more peaceful, more grounded state, rather than having the news on all the time and being in this state of fear, which then can have a knock-on effect in terms of your mental health, but also has a knock-on effect to you physically. And people don't realize that if you're in a permanent state of fear, it can actually have an effect on your internal organs. So you want to be away from that as much as possible so that you can make better quality decisions, if that makes sense.
Carmen, I can't agree with you more, especially the one with the news. I'm going to give you a little story which is true. An 80-odd-year-old woman, I keep on in touch with some elderly people on their own, and this one, when I rang her, she said, I'm depressed. I said, why are you depressed? Oh, I get up and I watch BBC News 24/7 all
Mm.
through the day. I said, no, 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 no. No, you can't do that. You watch one main news. If you're going to have the television on, laughter is the best medicine. Go
Yeah.
for the comedy. Go for whether it be Keeping Up Appearances, A Little Hello, or Ain't Half Hot Mom, or whether Oliver Samuels, or whatever comedy shows are around. Watch those and have your belly full of laugh. That is far better for you. And I rang her back in a week and she said, you know, it's done the trick. I only watch one main news item for the day, and that's
Yeah.
it. And I watch all the comedies, and some of them, they bring back memories. And that's my tip for people, especially if they're on their own. I say, find the comedy shows. There's several of them out there in the archives, and all that you have added to as well. So
Yeah.
thanks
Absolutely.
thanks for those tips for the viewers. Um, Moving on then, let me then ask you, are you involved in any other charities that you have not yet mentioned?
Um, I've covered all of those that I'm involved in, really. Yes.
I would be surprised if you said you're involved in any others because you're working so hard. But having said that, it leads on to the next question in terms of what do you then do leading such a busy life to as hobbies, leisure pursuits, to chill out, just enjoy life apart from all the things that you do, which are sort of work related. What hobbies
Yeah.
and leisure pursuits do you have? And why, whichever ones you have, why are those the ones you chose?
Well, I, I love reading. I love writing. My first love is writing. It really is. And so, even though I'm producing material for work, it's actually what I gravitate to naturally anyway. I love writing about your own mental health, little tips that you can use to um, feel better on a general basis. I love doing that. I journal a lot. So I write automatically. I did start off with short stories when I was younger, and I graduated onto nonfiction. I used to draw. I draw when I can, but I don't have much time to do that, as you can probably appreciate. Outside of lockdown, love going out for meals with friends, family. I love doing that. As I say, I've taken up karate again more recently. So I do that when I can. And so they're the kind of things, love crossword puzzles, Sudoku, love puzzles, love those kinds of things. It does, it keeps the brain very, very active. I'm a bit of a countdown fan, I have to say.
I see. So let me go back to the writing because I have a background where I love to read as well. Are any of these short stories or long stories that you've written, have you actually published any of them?
No, I haven't. No, I mean, they were just for me. That was just for fun for me. But I am actually working on a book at the moment called Release to Heal, and it incorporates a lot of the energy healing work that I've been doing over the years. And it's a book about using simple techniques to let go, to release. So it includes writing, because writing can be a release, an emotional release. So it's using different tools and techniques to release some of the the negative energy that we might hold within us, that stops us from doing what it is that we want to do. So that's in the offing. I should let you know when that comes out.
I was just about to say, here's a special invitation when that book does come out, because you've said so many things which even I, who I thought I was hot on the health and well-being agenda, but you've taken it to another level, Carmen. So when that book does come out, the TV production crew, Breakthrough TV, and myself, we will invite you back to come and explore with us what's in the book, and for people to start using that book in order to benefit themselves from a healthy you point of view. So we look forward to that. To be continued, please. That's a given. Okay. Now, having said that, let's look at social media. You've talked about so many different angles of health, well-being, calmness, stillness, etc. People wanting to get in touch with Carmen from Leicester, what's the best ways that they can do so from the social media platform?
You can obviously email me. My email address is info@stimulus, which is STIMULUS.uk.com. You can go to my website, which is stimulus.uk.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. My Facebook is facebook.com/Carmen.Gilfillan. And Gilfillan is spelled GILFILLAN. Twitter is twitter.com/stimulus1, the number 1. And LinkedIn is linkedin.com/stimulus1 again, the number 1. I've also got an online centre for natural health and wellbeing, which is Stimulus Wellbeing Centre, all one word, .thinkific, which is THINKIF for Freddie IC.com. Yeah, so I've started to, some of the stuff that I've been doing offline, I've started to pull all of that together into online courses. So I've just got 2 courses on there at the moment, but watch this space kind of a thing, and that will expand.
So for the benefit of the viewers, the executive producer of Breakthrough TV, Shannon Ricketts, will make sure to put all of those that you have just mentioned on this podcast when it goes out, so it will appear at the bottom, as well as you having spelt them out clearly. He'll make sure to put it there so people are able to. You're going to be inundated with requests and calls, I think, Carmen. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Before I end with your final thoughts, I want to touch on briefly, because I didn't. It's a question which I just thought of along the way. This is a black television station. It's aimed, not particularly, but aimed for black viewers and so on. We're talking about COVID-19 and the coronavirus and how it has impacted and affected black people within Britain far more disproportionately than the white population. The comorbidities such as diabetes, dementia, high blood pressure, strokes, you know the things that we're talking about. What's your take on it? Is that the be all and end all? Yeah, that's where it stops. There's nothing else. What's your view on why we have suffered and it has impacted us so more than any other ethnic group?
I think we need to be a little bit careful when we hear the mainstream media talking about black people being disproportionately more affected by anything, not to mention COVID, because we need to have a look at when we go to certain cities in the UK or even around the world. When you go to a black area, it's rare. I'll talk from a personal point of view. It's rare that I go to a city and I go to a black area, and that is one of the most affluent that's one of the most affluent areas in that city. It's rare for me to see that, and that's just from a personal point of view. So if you are in a rundown area, if you are surrounded by a lot of people who may be unemployed, if you yourself may be unemployed, or maybe you're on benefits, maybe you've got a low income coming in, then my question is, are you going to be in tip-top form in terms of your health? And if there is something out there like a pandemic, are you going to be more or less susceptible to that? So I think the story is a lot broader than what we are led to believe. That's one thing. Number two is the mainstream media is basing it, and potentially the government is basing what they're saying on statistics. Yeah. And so, we need to be mindful that there are different ways of gathering statistics, and, are the statistics that we're seeing 100% reliable? Because I've seen evidence, even from the Office of National Statistics, that is saying that some of the statistics that we're learning about are not necessarily the whole story. Because, for example, it depends, if you're talking about testing, it depends on how you're doing the tests as to what kind of statistics that you're going to get. So statistics can, depending on how you're gathering them, depending on who is funding the gathering of the statistics, can be swayed one way or the other. Now, this isn't to bash mainstream media. It is not to bash the government in any way, shape, or form. I'm just here to say that the situation in terms of Black people may not be as clear-cut as we have been led to believe. So, my thoughts would be, keep yourself as healthy and as well as you possibly can. It has never been more important than now for Black people to keep themselves as well and healthy as they can do, so that they're not susceptible to anything that is out there, COVID included.
I like that. I really do like that. Carmen, you have one more final thought which you'd like to share with us. Go for it, please.
Yeah, it was, I've hinted at it for most of the time that we've been talking, but I just really wanted to emphasize the importance, especially now, of taking responsibility for your health. Yeah, because we operate within a system that says, if something starts breaking down in your body, go to your GP or go to the hospital or go to the nearest walk-in clinic, whatever. And that's absolutely fine, because if you feel that there's something wrong, then you want some sort of help, especially if it's an emergency situation. Having said that, outside of that, I think one of the biggest learnings for us generally is to take responsibility for our own health and well-being. So that, that is just a given. Yeah? So we make sure that we're getting enough sleep, that we're drinking enough water, that we're exercising, that we're looking at our diet, and that we're taking care of our mental health. So I just wanted to emphasize that, because it is such an important point.
Yeah. So I hope the listeners and viewers, especially Black people, take on board what Carmen has had to say to us. It's a pleasure having you on our show, I should say. Our health is our wealth. We've learned so much from listening to you. As I said at the very beginning, you came highly recommended by Angela Clark of Teams, and you have lived up to the expectation. Well done. It's really lovely to see somebody out there with such a positive image about keeping ourselves healthy, and by so being healthy then leads on to wealth, because you and I both share the same view, I'm sure, that we can have all the money in the world and be as rich, a millionaire or billionaire, and if you're not healthy, what's the point of having it? Thank you once again, Carmen from Leicester, life coach and all the other things that you are, for coming and sharing with us your views and thoughts, and putting also what you're not just sharing, you're putting into practice these very points that we as Black people need to live by. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been great. Thank you very much.
Thanks to our sponsors, the Afro-Caribbean Millennium Center on Dudley Road, New Style Radio 98.7 FM, Breakthrough Media Studios, and Breakthrough TV.